Well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining. We are going to talk a little bit about Dynamics Field Service. My name is Stu Widmark. I'm with the Velosio uh, CE team here, implementing and supporting field service for our clients. And so one of the things we're going to talk about today is using a feature within Dynamics Field Service that allows us to match resources or technicians to the work that they need to do, or vice versa. In other words, matching or finding the correct resources to do the work that's required. Okay, so we're gonna kind of talk about those two things, and the first one we're going to look at is how to use the system to be able to find resources or route technicians to a certain job based on location, which is a very common requirement, of course. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is how to find the technicians that have certain skills that are required to do a particular job as well. And those two things go together many times. And for many of our clients, that's how they want to be able to apply the the system features to again route the best possible resource for the work that needs to get done. Okay. So in order to do that, and to kind of get that piece going, we're going to use this app that's part of the Dynamics suite. It's called Resource Scheduling. Now, this is related to, or it's part of the field service module, but it's kind of a special app, and it lets us do the things that we're kind of talking about today. So with the Resource Scheduling app, it kind of focuses in on just those things that we're talking about in terms of matching resources with scheduling requirements and routing and skills and things like that. So there's a little bit of background setup work in order to kind of help make sure that we have the correct resources or technicians matched up with the correct work. So the one thing that we do, or the first thing to do with that, is to go into our resources page and to again configure each person with certain characteristics and certain criteria. So the first thing we do is when we create a resource, we're gonna set certain parameters for that person, and that helps us use the system to schedule and to utilize that resource. One is we're going to set the time zone for that person, so that kind of matches us up with our time requirements. Under the scheduling tab, now there's a couple of different options, but what we're going to use today is something called organizational unit address. And what that is that's just simply telling us where is this person located. Are they based out of like a shop? Maybe they work out of their home, and in that case, we could just set their home address as their starting location. They may, work with like a crew or a team or something like that. But that's the one thing that we'll do as well is set that start location. So that lets us identify, who is in a particular area, or who is or what the distance is from that person to the work. Okay, and then with that we go into our field service and we set some additional we'll call it characteristics, and we're going to see this in a bit here, but what we call characteristics are certain skills or certifications or characteristics that this person has that we're going to use to filter out to determine who can do certain work. And along with that, then there are some additional settings, one of which is the work hours. So in this case, I've identified this person as having a work schedule of Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock. Now, these work schedules can be adjusted. They can be dynamic, where maybe they allow for time off, or business closures, or any other criteria. But basically, for this person, Aaron is working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Okay. So once we configure that resource, or that technician, that's where that's the criteria we're going to be able to use to match that person with work that needs to get done. And then the next thing that has to happen for everything to kind of work together is we're going to use something called a schedule board. Now, I've pre-configured my schedule board for certain parameters and criteria. So, for example, I just happen to set up my schedule board so that I'm going to filter automatically by a distance of 100 miles, let's say. Now I can change that if I want, but there are certain defaults within my schedule board that I'm going to set up ahead of time, just to make it a little easier and more efficient to find the right people for a particular job. So between those things, between configuring my resources to make sure that they have all the correct information, and we know their starting location, we know times, we know skills that they have available, then configuring my schedule board to make sure that I'm going to be looking for the correct people. Now we could start booking and start looking for how to route and how to match skills. So let's say, for example, I happen to have this particular work order, and I want to find a person, let's say, based on distance. And I just want to look through my list of resources and determine, okay, who's the closest. So what I could do is, if I select that particular work order, and this list down here is configurable, but in this case, it's just simply a list of work orders that aren't scheduled yet. They're open, and we need to put them on the schedule. So if I select that, and you can see I've got kind of my whole list of people available here, I can click, and it's going to open up a list of users that happen to fit a particular parameter or filter. So in this case, it shows me that I have 3 people that are available, first of all, during the time period that we've specified, and that are within a certain distance. So basically, I'm filtering out, anybody that, if they're 200 miles away, I'm not going to consider booking them. So it's just a way to filter and identify those users that are within that criteria. And you can see that, it does filter, or it does sort these or list these by distance. And so in this case, I can easily see that, hey, Tim's my guy. He's obviously the closest one over there. And so if I select Tim, I can apply that booking, and that will now be available or be assigned to Tim. And then again, he's the closest guy, and then I can get that over to him. So that's one way to do that. Again, based on distance, purely just very simple. Select one of your requirements, decide, hey, who's the closest person, assign it to that person, and then that work order, obviously, that'll create a booking, and that goes to that resource, and then that's on their schedule. But if I want to go back and maybe add a little bit more criteria to that, one of the other things that I happen to know, or that I know about this particular work order, is that, aside from, kind of looking for the person that's the closest to that location. One of the other things I need to do is I need to make sure it's somebody that has experience, let's say in bakery, because it just happens to be that's the job that's going to be done. So rather than going in here and figuring out, okay, who knows bakery, between all my teams, what I can do is I can have my characteristics configured here, and then and of course I can allow additional filtering. I can look for more specific requirements, or ratings, or whatever it might be. But in this case, I'm going to say, so between the people that I can see are within 100 miles, I need somebody that knows bakery. And so if I do that, it's going to come back and say, oh, Tim, there we go. Tim's certified in bakery. He's got experience, so I can apply that to him, and I can then turn around and again I can book that, create that booking. That goes to Tim. It goes on his schedule, and then he knows to go and do that job. And again, very simply, this is one way. It's not the only way, but it's one way to utilize your field service features to match individual resources to the work. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.